They want you to believe it ended with a battle. Fire raining from a fractured sky. Friends standing together on a hill. Max breathing through tubes in a hospital bed. 11 collapsing from exhaustion. The gate splitting Hawkins down the middle, like a wound that refuses to close. They want you to believe Vecna lost. But what if I told you the ending of Stranger Things Season 4 wasn't ending at all? What if every moment you watched, every tear you shed, every gasp that escaped your lips during those final episodes was exactly what Vecna wanted? What if the battle itself was a performance, and we were all sitting in the audience, applauding our own deception? This isn't about fan theories built on wishful thinking. This isn't about picking apart continuity errors or reading too much into a camera angle. This is about patterns. Patterns that the Duffer Brothers have been laying down since the very first season. Patterns that form a picture so disturbing, so perfectly orchestrated, that once you see it, you can't unsee it. Because here's what they don't tell you about monsters. The truly terrifying ones don't hide in shadows. They don't lurk in basements or alternate dimensions. They hide in plain sight. They make you think you've won. They make you believe the story is over. And then they show you it never began. Vecna has been called many things. Henry Creel, 1, the first child of Hawkins' lab. A psychic predator who feeds on trauma. A dark wizard from another dimension. But what if all those labels miss the point? What if Vecna isn't just a villain in this story? What if he's a director? Think about how he operates. Vecna doesn't simply kill. He stages. He curates. He crafts experiences tailored to each victim's deepest wounds. Chrissy Cunningham sees her mother's cruelty reflected back at her. Fred Benson relives the guilt of a car accident. Patrick McKinney drowns in the shadow of his father's abuse. Max Mayfield confronts every moment she wished her brother dead. These aren't random attacks. They're productions. Theater pieces designed to extract maximum suffering. And Vecna doesn't just watch. He participates. He narrates. He turns each death into a ritual with himself as both priest and audience. Now ask yourself this. If Vecna stages the deaths of his victims with such meticulous care, why would his own defeat be any less choreographed? The final battle happens in the Creel house, in the Upside Down. Nancy, Steve, and Robin attack Vecna's physical body with Molotov cocktails and shotgun blasts. Dustin and Eddie create a distraction with heavy metal thunder. Lucas fights Jason while Max offers herself as bait, using music and memories to anchor herself against Vecna's invasion. It's desperate. It's heroic. It's everything a climax should be. And it's too perfect. Let's slow down. Let's look at what actually happens in those final moments. Vecna has Max in his grasp. Her bones are breaking. Her eyes are bleeding. She's seconds from death, from becoming the fourth gate, the final sacrifice that will merge dimensions and unleash hell on Earth. Lucas screams her name. Her heartbeat stops. Then 11 arrives. She's been fighting Vecna in Max's mind, while simultaneously battling him in the mental void they share. She screams. She pushes. She reaches deeper than she's ever reached before. And somehow, against a creature who has overpowered her repeatedly, who killed dozens of children in the lab, who has had decades to grow stronger in the Upside Down, she wins. Vecna's body catches fire. Nancy shoots him through a window. He falls into the red lightning of the Upside Down below. His body hits the ground. The vines go slack. Max gasps back to life. Victory. Except Max doesn't wake up. Her heart restarts, but her mind is gone. Blank. Empty. 11 brings her back from death, but can't find her consciousness anywhere in the void. Max is alive and gone at the same time. A body without a person inside it. And 2 days later, the gates open anyway. The giant rift splits Hawkins into 4 pieces, spreading from the Creel house like veins of infection. Ash falls from the sky. The barrier between worlds is thinner than ever. Everything they fought to prevent happens regardless. So what did they actually stop? Here's where it gets interesting. Here's where the patterns start to show themselves. Because this isn't the first time Stranger Things has ended with an apparent victory that turned out to be a trap. Season 1 ends with 11 destroying the Demogorgon and seemingly sacrificing herself. But the Upside Down remains open. Will returns but brings something back with him. The gate isn't closed. It's just quieter. Season 2 ends with 11 closing the gate at Hawkins' lab triumph. Celebration. The snowball dance where everything feels okay again. But the Mind Flayer is still alive in the Upside Down, and it's already planning its return. Season 3 ends with Hopper's sacrifice closing the Russian gate. The Mind Flayer is defeated. Hawkins seems safe, but Hopper isn't dead. The Russians have a Demogorgon, and something is still stirring. Every single season finale gives us a victory that isn't really a victory. Every single time, our heroes think they've won. Every single time, they're wrong. So, why would Season 4 be any different? Unless it's not supposed to be different. Unless the pattern is the point. Let's talk about what Vecna says during his monologue to 11 in the Memory Void. He doesn't just explain his origin. He explains his philosophy, his vision, and if you listen carefully, he tells you exactly what he's doing. He talks about how humans are taught to see the world through arbitrary structures. Good and evil, right and wrong, order and chaos. He calls these constructs lies, cages built by the weak to control reality. He talks about how he saw through these lies as a child, how he looked at his family and saw them for what they really were, predictable, false, broken, how he decided to reshape them, to impose his truth on their reality. He talks about how Brenner tried to control him, how the other children feared him, how 11 was the only one strong enough to challenge him, but even she couldn't destroy him, only transform him. And then he says something crucial. He says he's been building something in the Upside Down all this time, waiting, planning, not just surviving, but creating, shaping that dimension to match his vision. He tells 11 that when he opens the gates, he won't simply invade Hawkins. He'll merge the worlds. He'll turn Earth into a reflection of the Upside Down, a place where his truth is the only truth, where suffering is a natural state, where he is God. And here's the thing. He tells her all of this before the final battle. He lays out his entire plan. He gives them the blueprint. Why would a predator who thrives on secrets reveal everything? There's a concept in psychology called the illusion of control. It's the tendency for people to overestimate their ability to influence outcomes. You see it in gambling, in superstition, in the way we grip the armrest during airplane turbulence, as if our tension could keep the plane aloft. But the darker side of this illusion is what happens when someone else controls your sense of control. When they make you think you have power over a situation that was never in your hands to begin with. Vecna is a psychic. He doesn't just read minds. He manipulates perception. He reaches into consciousness and rewrites experience. When his victims enter the trance, they're not seeing reality. They're seeing what he shows them. Their trauma plays out like a film he's directing in real time. So when 11 enters the void to fight him, what is she actually seeing? We experience the battle from her perspective. We see Vecna's physical form in the Creel house attic, vines connecting him to the Upside Down like roots to poison soil. We see Nancy and Steve and Robin throwing fire. We see Vecna burn and fall. But 11 isn't in the Creel house. She's in a mental space, a projection. And in that space, Vecna is the architect. What if the version of Vecna they defeated in the physical world was never meant to survive? What if his body was a decoy, a performance designed to make them think they'd won while his true self remained somewhere else entirely? Think about the mechanics of how Vecna kills. His physical body stays in the Upside Down, connected to that dimension through the vines. But his consciousness travels. It enters the minds of his victims. It manifests in their reality as a solid, tangible presence, even though he's not physically there. When Max is in a trance, Vecna appears in front of her. She can see him, touch him, run from him, but he's not really there. He's in her mind. The same way 11 projects herself into the void to communicate across distances. So when they burn his body in the Creel house, what are they actually burning? Here's a detail most people miss. When Nancy shoots Vecna and he falls through the attic window, his body disappears in the red storm below. They don't see him hit the ground. They don't confirm the kill. They just see him fall and assume he's gone. But later, when they return to the Upside Down to check, there's no body. The vines are withered but not dead. The Creel house is empty. And within 48 hours, The gates rip open anyway. If Vecna was truly defeated, why did his plan succeed? Unless his plan was never to win that battle. Unless his plan was to lose it. Let's go back to Max. Her death and resurrection is presented as a victory. 11 refuses to let her die. She reaches into the void, finds Max's fading consciousness, and pulls her back. Max's heart restarts. She breathes again, but she doesn't wake up. 11 searches for Max's mind in the void and finds nothing. Max is alive but absent. Her consciousness is gone. Not destroyed. Not dead. Just gone. Where did it go? When Vecna kills his victims, he doesn't just take their lives. He takes something from them. Their trauma, their pain, their essence. He consumes it. Patrick's father's abuse, Chrissy's mother's cruelty, Fred's guilt. He feeds on these things. But Max was different. Max was the fourth victim, the final gate. She was the keystone of his entire ritual. And 11 interrupted that ritual at the exact moment of Max's death. The exact moment Vecna was consuming her consciousness. The exact moment he was pulling her essence into himself. What if 11 didn't save Max? What if she just stopped Vecna from finishing? What if Max's consciousness is still inside him, suspended between life and death, trapped in the place where Vecna stores everything he takes? And what if that was always the plan? Here's where we need to talk about the gates, the geography of how they work, the rules the show has established. Gates in Stranger Things aren't random. They're tied to death, to violence, to the moment when the barrier between worlds is thinnest. Every gate that opens does so at a site of trauma. The original gate at Hawkins' lab opens when 11 makes contact with the Demogorgon. Her fear, her power, her desperation to survive, all of it tears a hole between dimensions. The gates in Season 2 appear where Will was taken, where his terror soaked into the fabric of reality. The gate at Starcourt opens through Russian machinery, but it requires constant energy, constant force. It's artificial, unstable. But Vecna's gates are different. They're organic. They grow from the sites where his victims died. Chrissy's gate at the trailer, Fred's gate at the lake, Patrick's gate at Lover's Lake. Each one a scar where Vecna reached through from the upside down and pulled someone's soul apart. 3 gates, 3 deaths. But Vecna needed 4. Max was supposed to be the 4th, the final pillar, the death that would allow all the gates to merge into one massive rift, tearing Hawkins open permanently. But Max didn't fully die. 11 stopped it, so the 4th gate shouldn't have been able to form. Yet it did. The rift that splits Hawkins runs directly through the Creel house, 4 directions, 4 paths, spreading from the site where Vecna's body supposedly died. Think about that. The 4th gate opens at the location of Vecna's own death. Not Max's. His. What if that was a real ritual? What if Max's death was the misdirection? What if Vecna needed to die, or appear to die, in order to complete his transformation? Let me take you deeper. Let's talk about the Upside Down itself. What it is. How it works. The Upside Down isn't just another dimension. It's a reflection. A dark mirror of Hawkins frozen at a specific moment in time. November 6, 1983. The day Will Byers disappeared. The day 11 opened the first gate. For years, the show has implied that the Upside Down is a separate place that existed before 11's gate, a dark realm that the Demogorgon came from. But Season 4 changes that. When 11 relives her memories in the void, we see the truth. The Rainbow Room Massacre. Henry Creel overpowering the other children. 11 fighting back. Their psychic battle tearing the lab apart. And then, in a surge of desperate power, 11 doesn't just hurt Henry. She banishes him. She rips open a gate and sends him through. And on the other side, Henry Creel transforms. The dimension remakes him. Vines pierce his flesh. His body twists. He becomes Vecna. And the world around him, this dark reflection of Hawkins, becomes the Upside Down. 11 didn't open a door to an existing dimension. She created it. Her power, her trauma, her desperate need to protect herself from Henry, all of it manifested as a new reality. A prison built from her own mind. The Upside Down is 11's creation, her shadow self-given form. And Vecna has been living inside it, shaping it, claiming it as his own ever since. Now think about what happens when 11 fights Vecna in the void during the finale. She's inside his mind. He's inside hers. They're locked in a battle of consciousness, each trying to overpower the other. 11 is fighting to save Max. Vecna is fighting to complete his ritual. But what if the ritual wasn't about Max at all? What if it was about 11? What if Vecna needed 11 to enter his mind? What if he needed her to reach as deep as she could, to push her power to the absolute limit, to connect with him on a level she'd never connected before? What if the entire battle was designed to create a permanent link between them? There's a moment during the final confrontation that most people overlook. It happens fast. Blink and you'll miss it. But once you see it, everything changes. 11 is in the void, screaming at Vecna, pushing back against his assault on Max. She's reached her breaking point. Blood streams from her nose. Her body convulses in the pizza freezer where she's hidden. She's giving everything she has. And Vecna smiles. Not a grimace. Not a snarl of pain as Nancy and Steve burn his body. A smile. A genuine expression of satisfaction, as if something he's been waiting for has finally happened. Then he lets go. He releases Max. He allows his body to catch fire. He permits himself to be shot and to fall. And as he disappears into the red lightning below, that smile never fades. Why would a creature who has spent decades planning his revenge, who has orchestrated every detail with surgical precision, smile as his plan apparently falls apart? Unless it didn't fall apart. Unless it worked exactly as intended. Let's talk about the number 4. It shows up everywhere in Season 4, and not by accident. For victims. For gates. For directions of the final rift. But there's another for that matters. For people connected to Vecna's ritual. Chrissy. Fred. Patrick. Max. Except that's not quite right, is it? Because Max didn't die. Not fully. 11 brought her back. So there's something missing. Someone missing. The fourth sacrifice was never meant to be Max. It was meant to be 11. Not her death. Her submission. Her connection. Her power. Think about what Vecna needs. He wants to merge dimensions. To turn Hawkins into a reflection of the Upside Down. But the Upside Down is 11's creation. It's built from her trauma, her power, her subconscious fears given form. She's the architect, even if she doesn't know it. Vecna can shape that dimension. He can command the creatures within it. He can use it as a staging ground for his invasion. But he can't fundamentally change what it is. He can't make it grow beyond Hawkins. He can't make it consume the world. For that, he needs the original creator. He needs 11 to open the final gate. Not from outside, but from within. Not as an attack, but as a bridge. And she did exactly that when she entered his mind to save Max. Every time 11 uses her power, she creates ripples between dimensions. When she opens gates, she's not breaking through walls. She's extending herself. Her consciousness reaches into the space between worlds and pulls them together. That's what happened in 1979, when she sent Henry to the Upside Down. Her power didn't just push him away. It created a new space for him to exist in, a dimension shaped by her trauma, her fear, her rage. And that's what happened during the Season 4 finale. When 11 reached into Vecna's mind, when she connected with him on that psychic level, when she pushed her power deeper than ever before, she wasn't fighting him. She was joining him. She built a bridge. And Vecna walked right across it. Here's the evidence. After the battle, 11 is weaker than she's ever been. Not just tired. Fundamentally depleted. She can barely stand. Her powers are erratic. And when she tries to find Max in the void, she can't. Her connection to the psychic plane is damaged in a way it's never been before. But the gates are stronger than ever. The rift doesn't just open. It grows. It spreads. It consumes Hawkins in a way that previous gates never did. The barrier between worlds isn't just thin anymore. It's dissolving. And all of this happens after Vecna supposedly died. If 11 defeated him, why did his power increase? Unless she didn't defeat him. Unless she empowered him. Now, let's talk about what Vecna said during his monologue. Not just the words, but the way he said them. The performance of it. He tells Eleven his entire origin story, how he killed his family, how he ended up at Hawkins' lab, how Brenner tried to control him, how the other children feared him. Every detail, every motivation, everything she needs to understand him. But here's the thing. Vecna doesn't explain himself to his victims. When Chrissy is in the trance, he doesn't tell her why he's killing her. When Fred is drowning in guilt, Vecna doesn't justify his actions. He just feeds. So, why does he explain everything to Eleven? Because he needs her to understand. He needs her to see him as he sees himself. Not as a monster, but as a visionary. Someone who looked at the world's lies and chose truth. Someone who suffered under others' control and chose freedom. He's not trying to scare her. He's trying to convert her. And on some level, it works. Watch Eleven's face during the monologue. She's not just horrified. She's listening. She's processing. She's seeing Henry Creel as a child, alone and misunderstood, punished for being different. She's seeing him in the lab, controlled by Brenner the same way she was controlled. She's seeing herself in him. That's the real horror of Vecna. Not that he's evil, but that he's a version of what Eleven could have become. A child with immense power, traumatized by the people who should have protected them, lashing out at a world that tried to cage them. He's her dark reflection. And during the finale, he makes sure she sees that reflection clearly. Now imagine you're Vecna. You spent decades in the Upside Down, growing stronger, planning your return. You know 11 is a key to everything. You know she created this dimension. You know her power is the only thing that can truly open the gates permanently. How do you get her to do it? You can't force her. She's too strong, too determined. If you try to control her directly, she'll fight back. She'll resist. She might even destroy you. So you don't force her. You manipulate her. You create a situation where she has to use her power to save someone she loves. You put Max in danger. You make the stakes personal. You push 11 to her absolute limit, to the point where she'll do anything, sacrifice anything, to protect her friend. And when she reaches into your mind to fight you, when she connects with you on that deep psychic level, you let her think she's winning. You let her believe she's overpowered you. You fall. You burn. You disappear. And while she's celebrating her victory, while she's focused on trying to save Max, you complete the real ritual. The bridge is built. The connection is made. The final gate opens. Not because you forced it, but because 11 opened herself. If you made it this far, if you're still watching, still listening, still letting these words sink into your mind, I need you to do something. I need you to pause for just a moment and think about what we've uncovered here. Not just a theory, a pattern, a design hidden in plain sight. And if this is making you see the show differently, if it's changing the way you understand a story, leave a comment. Tell me what you think, because we're not done yet. Not even close. Let's talk about Max's Walkman, her lifeline, the one thing that saved her from Vecna's first attempt. Kate Bush is running up that hill playing on a loop, pulling her back from the edge of death. Music as salvation. It's a beautiful idea, resonant, emotionally powerful. But have you ever stopped to ask why it works? The show tells us that music creates a strong emotional connection to reality. It anchors the victim's consciousness to their happiest memories, giving them something to hold on to while Vecna tries to pull them into trauma. When Max hears the song, she remembers her friends, her life, the things worth fighting for. And that memory creates a tether strong enough to break Vecna's hold. Except that doesn't make sense with what we know about how Vecna operates. Vecna doesn't just invade minds. He controls them. When his victims enter the trance, they're in his domain. They see what he wants them to see. They experience what he wants them to experience. He's not fighting against their memories. He's weaponizing them. Chrissy's mother isn't a memory. It's Vecna wearing the shape of her trauma. Fred's guilt isn't a flashback. It's a construct Vecna built to torture him. Everything in the trance is under Vecna's control. So, how does a song break that control? How does an external sound reach through a psychic construct that Vecna has spent days building inside someone's mind? Unless Vecna allows it to. Think about what happens when Max escapes the first time. She's levitating in the graveyard. Her eyes are rolled back. Her bones are starting to crack. Lucas and Steve and Dustin are screaming at her. And then the music starts. Max hears it. She runs. She fights through Vecna's lair, through the twisted corridors of the Creole house in her mind, through the manifestations of her guilt and pain. And she makes it back. She collapses in Lucas's arms. Everyone celebrates. They found the solution. They know how to beat Vecna now. But does Vecna seem defeated? Does he act like someone whose plan just failed? No. He immediately selects his next victim. He kills Patrick that same night. And he does it in front of everyone, in the middle of the lake, where they can all watch. He doesn't hide. He doesn't retreat. He escalates. Because Max's escape wasn't a failure. It was exactly what he wanted. Here's what most people miss. Vecna doesn't need to kill Max that first time. He's had days to select his victims. Days to plan each death with perfect precision. If he wanted Max dead in the graveyard, she would have died. But he didn't want her dead. Not yet. He wanted her scared. He wanted her to experience his power and escape, just barely. He wanted her to feel that moment of relief, that false hope that she could beat him. Because that fear, that hope, that emotional volatility, that's what makes the second attempt so much more effective. When Vecna comes for Max the second time, she's ready. She has her Walkman. She has her friends. She has a plan. And all of that confidence, all of that preparation, makes her think she's in control, which is exactly when Vecna breaks her. The Walkman trick works once. It saves her in the graveyard because Vecna lets it work. He allows her to escape so that when he comes for her again, she'll rely on the same method. She'll believe in it. She'll think she knows the rules. And then he'll change them. During the final battle, Max has her headphones on. The song is playing. But this time it's not enough. Vecna is stronger. His grip is tighter. The music still reaches her, but it can't save her. Her bones break anyway. Her eyes bleed anyway. She dies anyway. The one thing that worked before fails completely, because it was never about the music. It was about giving Max hope so that Vecna could take it away. That's the pattern. That's what Vecna does. He doesn't just kill. He stages elaborate psychological operations designed to maximize suffering. And that staging requires setup. It requires his victims to believe they have a chance. So ask yourself, if Vecna staged Max's first escape to make her second death more devastating, what else did he stage? What if the entire final battle was the same kind of setup? What if he let them burn his body, let them think they'd won, so that when the gates opened anyway, when Hawkins split apart despite their victory, the despair would be total? What if every apparent success was designed to deepen the eventual failure? Let's look at the other characters. At what happens to them during the finale? Eddie dies. He chooses to be a hero. He stops running. He faces the demo bats and gives Dustin a chance to escape. It's beautiful, tragic, the perfect redemption arc for someone who spent the whole season being hunted for a crime he didn't commit. But why do the demo bats attack so aggressively? Why do they swarm Eddie in those final moments instead of chasing Dustin? The creatures of the Upside Down are controlled by Vecna. They're extensions of his will. He decides where they go, what they do, who they target. He sent them after Eddie. He killed Eddie specifically. Why? Because Eddie's death serves a purpose. It traumatizes Dustin. It adds weight to the victory. It makes the cost feel real. And that emotional devastation will make Dustin and the others less likely to question what actually happened. They'll be too busy grieving to ask whether the battle they won was the battle that mattered. Eddie's death wasn't random. It was part of performance. Now look at Steve and Nancy and Robin. They burn Vecna's body. They watch him fall. They escape the Creole house believing they've killed him. But what do they actually accomplish? They destroy a body, a physical form. But Vecna is psychic. His power exists in the mental realm. His consciousness can travel. His true self might not have been in that body at all. What if the creature they burned was a husk, a shell Vecna left behind, while his real consciousness was in the void with 11? What if he let them destroy his physical form, because he didn't need it anymore? After all, what good is a body when you're trying to become a god? Here's another detail. When the gates open, when the rift tears through Hawkins, Where does it originate? The Creel house, the site where Vecna's body fell, the fourth location, the fourth gate. But gates in Stranger Things open at sites of death. Human death. The trauma of a person dying creates the tear between dimensions. Vecna's victims all died in specific locations, and those locations became gates. So if Vecna's body was destroyed at the Creel house and a gate opened there, doesn't that mean a person died there? Doesn't that mean the death was real? Not if Vecna counts as a victim. Not if his death is what powered the final gate. Think about the mechanics. Vecna has been creating gates by killing traumatized humans. He feeds on their pain, and that pain tears reality. But he needs 4 deaths, 4 gates, for corners to complete the ritual. Chrissy, Fred, Patrick, and then Max. Except Max doesn't die. Not completely. 11 saves her, so the 4th gate shouldn't work. Unless there's another death, another sacrifice, another trauma powerful enough to complete the pattern. Vecna's own death, not his real death, his performed death. His transformation from physical being into something else entirely. The shedding of his body like a snake, leaving its skin behind. He becomes the 4th victim. He tears himself apart. And in doing so, he powers the final gate from the inside. That's why he smiled. That's why he let them win. Because the battle in the Creel house was never about survival. It was about sacrifice. His own. And when you sacrifice yourself to open a gate, when you become the trauma that tears dimensions apart, you don't die. You transcend. You become the upside down itself. Now think about what Hawkins looks like after the gates open. Ash falling from the sky. Plants dying. The air heavy with decay. The barrier between worlds thin enough that creatures can slip through without gates. It looks like the upside down is bleeding into reality. Like the 2 dimensions are merging. But it's not a merger. It's a consumption. The upside down isn't invading Hawkins. It's digesting it. Slowly turning the town into a reflection of itself. And at the center of it all, at the heart of the rift, is the Creel house. Vecna's home. His origin point. The place where he killed his family and began his transformation. If you're still here, if you're still following this thread, here's what I need you to understand. This isn't about predicting Season 5. This is about recognizing that the story we watched might not be the story that actually happened. And if you're starting to question everything, if you're going back to a finale in your mind and seeing the cracks in the victory, good. That's exactly what you should be doing. Hit that subscribe button. Because what we're about to uncover in the final sections will change everything you thought you knew about Stranger Things. There's a scene in the hospital after the battle. 11 sits beside Max's bed, staring at her friend's empty face. Max's chest rises and falls with mechanical regularity. Her heart beats. Her body functions. But there's nothing behind her eyes. 11 reaches into the void one more time. She searches desperately for any trace of Max's consciousness. She calls out her name. She begs her to respond. And she finds nothing, just silence, an absence where Max's mind should be. This is presented as tragedy, as the cost of victory. Max is alive but lost, saved but gone. It's heartbreaking. It's unfair. It's the kind of Pyrrhic victory that makes audiences ache. But what if it's not a tragedy? What if it's a clue? Because if Max's consciousness is in her body, and it's not in the void, where is it? There's only one other place it could be. Inside Vecna, trapped in the mental space where he stores everything he takes from his victims. We know Vecna consumes his victims' trauma. He feeds on their pain. But what happens to that trauma after he takes it? Does it just disappear? Or does it become part of him? Think about how his lair looks. The twisted corridors. The manifestations of guilt and fear. The way different victims' memories seem to bleed together into one nightmarish landscape. It's not just a psychic construct. It's a collection. A gallery of stolen suffering. Every person Vecna has killed is still inside him. Not dead. Not destroyed. Preserved. Trapped in an eternal moment of torment that he can revisit whenever he wants. Chrissy is in there. Fred is in there. Patrick is in there. Dozens of children from Hawkins' lab are in there. And now Max is in there too. Not fully consumed. Not fully dead. But suspended. Waiting. For what? For Vecna to use them. Here's where we need to talk about the Upside-Down creatures. The Demogorgon, the Demodogs, the Mind Flayer. Every monster that's emerged from that dimension has been under Vecna's control. They're not independent entities. They're extensions of his will. But where do they come from? The show has implied that the Upside Down is a dark ecosystem, a place where predatory creatures evolved separately from Earth. But Season 4 changes that implication. It reveals that Vecna has been shaping the Upside Down, building it, designing it. What if he's not just commanding existing creatures? What if he's creating them? What if every monster that emerges from the Upside Down is made from the consciousness of someone Vecna consumed? The Demogorgon isn't a random predator. It's a collection of stolen souls twisted into a new form. A hunting machine built from trauma and pain. Every person Vecna killed at Hawkins' lab, every child he destroyed, became raw material for something else. And the Mind Flayer, that enormous entity of shadow and lightning that has haunted the series in Season 2. What is it? What could possibly be large enough, powerful enough, to command entire armies of creatures? It's Vecna's original vision made manifest. It's every victim he's ever taken, merged into a single consciousness. A hive mind built from suffering. And now Max is part of it. Her consciousness isn't gone. It's been added to the collection. And when Vecna finally completes his transformation, when he fully merges the dimensions and consumes Hawkins, Max won't just be trapped. She'll be weaponized. She'll become another creature in his army. Another tool for spreading his truth. That's the real horror. Not death, but transformation. Not ending, but repurposing. Vecna doesn't kill people. He recycles them. Now let's talk about 11's arc. About what the show has been building towards since the very beginning. 11 started as a weapon, a child raised in a lab to be used by others. Brenner molded her, tested her, pushed her to unlock abilities she didn't understand. And when she finally escaped, when she found friends and family and a life outside the lab, she thought she was free. But she's never been free. She's just been running from one fight to another, one monster to another, always using her power, always sacrificing, always carrying the weight of everyone's survival on her shoulders. And now she's weaker than ever. The battle with Vecna drained her in a way nothing else has. Her connection to the void is damaged. Her powers are unreliable. She's more vulnerable than she's been since Season 1. Why? Because Vecna took something from her. Not her power, but her control over it. When she reached into his mind, when she connected with him on that deep psychic level, she didn't just fight him, she merged with him. And now part of him is in her, just like part of her is in the Upside Down. They're linked, permanently. The bridge she built can't be unbuilt. The connection she established can't be severed. Vecna is in her head, now the same way the Mind Flayer was in Will's head. The same way every victim carries their trauma. But unlike his other victims, 11 is strong enough to resist, strong enough to fight, strong enough to potentially turn that connection against him. Unless that's exactly what he wants. What if the link isn't a weakness? What if it's the final step in his plan? What if Vecna needs 11 to fight him? What if her resistance, her determination to stop him, is what will ultimately give him the power to reshape reality? Think about the pattern. Every time 11 has used her power against Vecna, he's gotten stronger. When she banished him as a child, she created the Upside Down. When she closed gates, the Mind Flayer adapted. When she fought him in Season 4, the gates opened wider than ever. She's not stopping him. She's empowering him. And he's been guiding her toward this outcome since the beginning. Here's the really disturbing part. Brenner knew, not everything, but enough. Brenner spent decades studying psychic abilities. He understood the connection between trauma and power. He knew that pushing children to their breaking point unlocked abilities they couldn't access otherwise. And he knew Henry Creel was different, special, the first and strongest of his subjects. When Henry killed the other children, when 11 banished him, Brenner didn't mourn. He studied. He took notes. He learned. And then he spent the next 15 years preparing 11 to face Henry again, not to defeat him, to complete him. Brenner called 11 his greatest creation, his masterpiece, but he also called Henry that. He saw both of them as experiments, as tools. And when you have two powerful tools, you don't keep them separate forever. You combine them. Brenner's final words to 11 aren't about love or redemption. They're about legacy, about the work continuing, about 11 becoming what he always intended her to become, a bridge between worlds, a living gate, the final key to merging dimensions. And Vecna is on the other side, waiting to walk across that bridge. Now think about Season 5, about what the Duffer Brothers have promised, the final battle, the ultimate confrontation, 11 versus Vecna. But what if there is no battle? What if the confrontation is actually a merger? What if defeating Vecna requires 11 to do the one thing she's been running from her entire life? Become him. Not evil, not a monster, but a being that exists between dimensions, a consciousness powerful enough to reshape reality, a god of the void. That's Vecna's real plan. Not to destroy 11, but to elevate her, to show her that the only way to stop his truth from spreading is to impose her own truth, to become what he is, to claim the Upside Down as her own creation and remake it in her image. And the horrifying part? It might work. Because if 11 becomes a being like Vecna, if she steps into that role, she might be able to close the gates permanently. She might be able to save Hawkins. She might be able to stop the invasion. But she'll lose herself in the process. She'll become the thing she fought against. She'll prove Vecna right, that the only way to escape the lies of reality is to become powerful enough to rewrite them, that the only path to freedom is to cage yourself in godhood, and everyone will call her a hero. That's the staged ending. Not the finale we saw, but the finale we're building toward. Not a battle, but a transformation. Not a victory, but a sacrifice that looks like victory. Vecna isn't trying to beat 11. He's trying to recruit her. And every step she takes to stop him brings her closer to becoming exactly what he wants. If this is clicking for you, if you're seeing the full picture now, I need you to leave a comment. Tell me what part of this hit you hardest, because we're almost at the end, and what comes next is the darkest revelation of all. Let's go back to the very beginning, to November 6, 1983, the night Will Byers disappeared. 11 opens a gate at Hawkins' lab by making contact with the Demogorgon. The creature crosses over. It hunts. It takes Will. Everything starts. Or does it? Here's something no one talks about. Before 11 opened the gate, before she touched the Demogorgon in the void, that creature didn't exist. There was no Upside Down. There was no dark dimension. There was just 11 and Henry, and a psychic connection that transcended time. When 11 banished Henry in 1979, she created the Upside Down. Her power tore open a new dimension. Henry fell through. He transformed into Vecna. The dimension became his domain. But here's the question. What year did that dimension freeze at? 1979? The year Henry was sent there? No, 1983. The year 11 opened the gate again. The Upside Down is frozen at the moment Will disappeared. Every detail perfect. Every object in place. Nancy's diary ends at that exact date. The posters. The furniture. The world. Why? Because the Upside Down isn't a place that existed before and was discovered. It's a place that was created by 11's power and shaped by her memories. It's a snapshot of Hawkins at the exact moment she opened the gate, which means Vecna has been living in a world that 11 created, a world that exists because of her, a world that he can shape but never truly own, unless he makes her give it to him willingly. Everything that has happened since that first gate is part of a plan. The Demogorgon hunting Will, the Mind Flayer possessing him, the Russian gate, every incident designed to push 11 toward a single outcome, opening a permanent bridge between worlds. But not through force, through choice. Vecna needs 11 to open the final gate consciously, to reach into the Upside Down and claim it as her creation, to accept responsibility for the dimension she made and choose to merge it with reality. Only then will the dimensions truly become one. Only then will his vision be complete. And the terrifying thing? She might have already done it. During the Season 4 finale, when 11 connected with Vecna in the Void, when she pushed her power deeper than ever before, she wasn't just fighting him. She was touching the Upside Down directly, feeling its edges, understanding its structure. She reached into her own creation and recognized it for what it was. And that recognition, that moment of understanding, might have been the key that unlocked everything. Because you can't control something you don't know you created. You can't reshape something you don't recognize as yours. But once you see it, once you understand that the dark dimension is your shadow given form, you have a choice. Destroy it, claim it, or let someone else rule it in your place. Vecna is betting she'll choose the third option, that she'll be so horrified by what her power created that she'll step back, that she'll refuse to become what he is. And in her refusal, she'll let him win. But there's another possibility, a darker one. What if 11 chooses to claim the Upside Down? What if she steps fully into her role as its creator? What if she becomes powerful enough to reshape that dimension into something that isn't a nightmare? That would stop Vecna. That would save Hawkins. That would close the gates. But it would also mean 11 choosing to live in the Upside Down, to exist between worlds, to become something more and less than human. She would save everyone by leaving everyone behind. And that's the staged ending. That's what Vecna has been building toward. Not 11's death, not her defeat, but her ascension, her transformation into a being like him, a consciousness that exists outside normal reality. He wants her to become a god so that he can finally rest, so that the Upside Down can have a ruler who chose that burden rather than having it forced upon them. He wants to pass his curse to her and make it look like salvation. Now here's the final piece. The one detail that confirms everything. At the very end of Season 4, after the gates open, after the ash starts falling, there's a shot of the Upside Down. We've seen it before. The twisted landscape, the red lightning, the dead vines. But this time there's something new. Something growing in the ruins of the Creel house. Flowers. White flowers blooming in the darkness. Soft petals against rotting wood. Life in a place that has only ever known death. And the show never explains them, never mentions them, just shows them for a few seconds and moves on. But those flowers are everything. They're proof that the Upside Down is changing, that something new is growing there, that the dimension isn't just a place of horror anymore. It's becoming a garden, and someone is tending it. Not Vecna. He feeds on death. He shapes nightmares. He wouldn't grow flowers. But 11 would, if she was trying to reclaim her creation, if she was trying to turn the Upside Down into something beautiful, if she was preparing it to become her home. Those flowers are a message, not to the audience. To Vecna, they're 11 telling him that she understands now, that she sees what he's been trying to show her, that she's ready to make a choice. And when Season 5 begins, when we see Hawkins struggling to survive under the spreading influence of the Upside Down, 11 won't be fighting to close the gates from the outside. She'll be inside, in the dimension she created, growing flowers in the dark, becoming the thing Vecna always knew she would become, a god in a dying world. That's the staged ending. That's what we watched happen in slow motion without realizing it. Every moment from the finale was part of Vecna's performance. Max's death and resurrection, the burning of his body, the opening of the gates, the flowers in the ruins, all of it theater, all of it designed to guide 11 toward a single choice, save the world by leaving it behind. And the most disturbing part, it's working, because when you watch the finale again, when you see 11 sitting in that desert with her eyes closed, reaching into the void, you're not watching someone fighting, you're watching someone considering. Someone standing at a crossroads. Someone deciding whether to step through a door that only opens one way. Vecna isn't trying to break her. He's trying to free her, to show her that the only escape from being used by others is to have so much power that no one can use you anymore. And if she accepts that truth, if she steps into the Upside Down and claims it fully, she'll stop his invasion. She'll close the gates. She'll save Hawkins. But she'll prove him right. She'll become exactly what he is, a consciousness so powerful that it had to separate itself from humanity in order to survive. That's why he smiled. That's why he let them burn his body. That's why the gates opened anyway. Because the battle was never about winning or losing. It was about showing Eleven who she really is and making her accept it. So when Season 5 asks you to celebrate Eleven's final sacrifice, when shows are closing the gates by merging with the Upside Down, when presents her transformation as heroic and necessary, remember this. Vecna staged that ending. He wrote that script. He directed that performance. And we all applauded exactly when he wanted us to. The ending wasn't real. It was staged. And the proof has been there the entire time, hiding in plain sight, waiting for someone to see the pattern. Now you see it. Now you can't unsee it. And that's exactly what Vecna wanted. If this changed the way you see Stranger Things, if you're going to watch Season 5 with completely different eyes, do me one last favor. Subscribe to this channel. Because if the Duffer Brothers actually pull this off, if Season 5 reveals that everything we just discussed was their plan all along, we're going to need to talk about it. And if I'm wrong, if Season 5 gives us a traditional ending where Eleven defeats Vecna and everyone goes home happy, then we'll talk about why that's the most disappointing ending they could have chosen. Because the story they've been telling is so much darker and more brilliant than anyone realized. The ending was staged. Vecna proves it. And you can never watch the show the same way again.